Peace and blessings, everyone. You're now locked in with the baddest chaplain on the globe, Chris B. First and foremost, I want to thank you so much for subscribing to us on YouTube, BaddestChaplain.substack.com, Spotify, Apple, any and everywhere that you get podcasts. Our guest today is CEO and Creative Educator with York Creative Education Group, Dr. Portia York. Dr. Portia York is a fiber artist with a Master of Advanced Crochet Stitches and Technique certification from the Crochet Guild of America and a PhD in Curriculum and Instruction from the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. Dr. York has taught many crochet sessions to young people in Charlotte, Haiti, Guatemala, the Bahamas, in an effort to express that crocheting draws on both the concrete and creative sides of the brain. She describes her creative journey as the most important aspect of her life. Over the years, the magical and artistic practices of crocheting and sewing have positively impacted her, stemming from her love of fibers and creating art since the age of 10. She's an educator, an artist with research and practice in culturally responsive pedagogy, arts integration, and STEAM. So without further ado, Dr. York, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Thank you so much. That was great. Thank you for that introduction. I am doing well. You made me sound fabulous. So
Oh,
thank
you
you.
are. It's light. It's light. When you telling the truth, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I'm good. Yes. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me on the show.
no. Thank you for being here. Take us through our through your journey. I want to hear all about what inspired you to crochet. You know, it feels like sort of like
Yeah.
a sacred and sometimes lost art. But talk us through it. Like, how'd you do this?
Yeah, I don't remember the exact thing that inspired me, but I do remember when I learned.
Mhm.
And I learned at a summer camp in Boston. I'm from Boston.
All
And
right.
so my mom, single parent, would put us in after school and summer camps at a young age. And there was a counselor there who was crocheting, is where I learned.
Mhm.
And so along the way, I must have really enjoyed it because I continued to do that over and over again.
Mhm.
And in younger years, I think it was just something for me to do, a craft,
Got you.
something for me to do with my hands. I wasn't really thinking about it as, oh, this is going to be like art I'm going to create. It was just like, oh, I learned to stitch, I can crochet. And I was doing things like, a scarf, a square,
Mhm.
really simple things. And somehow that probably touched me in ways that I didn't know at the time,
Mhm.
where now I like embody it in my whole life. Like it is my world. I've
Yeah.
studied
Yeah.
it. I've studied like where it's come from in different cultures and countries. I've learned 50 different crochet stitches. I mean,
Come
I
on.
really like jumped in with both feet. So
Mhm.
that's kind of like once I learned it, my inspiration was learning more of it,
Mhm.
learning where it came from, how it started, the stitches, what can be made with it, how it touches me, how creative can you get? Can you teach it? Like I just kept spiraling with that.
Get you.
So
Get you.
probably that's my inspiration.
I'm with that. I'm with that. So how do you think this whole notion of, you know, crocheting and it really tapping into like your artistic side, how has that evolved alongside this academic journey? Because you're not just someone who crochets on the side. I mean, you're a whole PhD, you're a whole professor with this. Like, so talk about how this art form and your academic skills, how they intertwine.
Yeah, this was not a plan initially. Initially, I was doing crochet work and then working a separate job in a different field. And I was kind of
Yeah.
just crocheting, as a hobby, as
Mm-hmm.
something fun to do. And then I started creating with it and actually exhibiting work that was actually enjoyed by other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I continued that process. And as I started transitioning into academia, I really tried to mesh my research and practice with crochet
Uh,
because I wanted to bring my worlds together.
right,
And
right.
so, what that meant for me was, can I teach this content? Can I talk about practice? Can I talk about the research benefits behind crochet? Can I do studio work with crochet? And so that's kind of how my two worlds came together in
Mm-hmm.
academia and in art was through trying to bring the worlds together. It wasn't a like master plan that I had, 10
Right.
years ago, but it is my master plan now.
For sure.
So I'm in this uh, career transition, so to speak,
Hmm.
where I'm trying to align my worlds together, academia and fiber art
Love it.
together.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what do you mean when you say, I read something that you wrote where you talked about crocheting, drawing from both sides of your brain. Like,
Yeah.
what does that mean? Like, walk us through that.
Yeah. So, typically we hear, oh, you have your right side of your brain and your left side of your brain. And
Yeah,
one
yeah.
side is very logical and strategic and mathematical, and the other side is creative and, more easygoing and free flowing, where you can bring concepts together. And so, with this technique, I believe that both sides come together
Hmm.
because with crochet, you are actually doing a lot of math. You are counting stitches, increasing, decreasing, multiplying, creating geometric shapes. And if you look at patterns of crocheted work, you can see shapes within, you can see patterns of stitches. That is that logical, mathematical side of your brain. But the creative side has created this piece of art. Your brain went to another place to say, I'm creating this. I'm
Hmm.
creating this beautiful we'll even say a scarf. This beautiful scarf made of two or three different types of stitches out of a nice soft wool that's, X amount of size
Hmm.
big. And so you brought that creative piece together with that mathematical, logical piece together. And that's what I mean. Like it balances both sides of your brain.
Right,
I
right.
love that for me because I feel like I like to use both sides of my brain.
No
I'm
doubt.
very organized. I'm very like methodical, but I also like to be free. I also
Yeah, yeah.
like to like I want my brain to go wherever I want it to go. So I like that I can bring both of my worlds together in that practice.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah.
Well, what would you describe your teaching style as? Like, if you think about, you talked about, you enjoy both the creative and the logical and strategic. How does that manifest itself in your pedagogy?
Yeah, that's been good because it's only been recently that I started teaching in academia over the past 3 to 4 years. And
Hmm.
so I've discovered that I like certain styles of teaching. And I know that I like to be more like a knowledgeable guide,
Ah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And but since I worked in a school for many years with students who are diagnosed with learning differences,
Right.
I know that my teaching style needs to, um, one, be a safe space for people who come with different styles, right?
Uh huh.
And then make sure that I have kind of like a diverse style where each student can learn, right?
Yeah.
Because the point of them being there is to learn. And so I'm trying to make sure that, I'm using different modalities. I'm trying to be a knowledgeable guide and not just
Hmm.
I'm this lecturer and you just listen to what I say, but I want participation. I want feedback. I want them to be engaged in it. And even if the interesting thing is about these kind of classes, a lot of the students I get, they're like, I don't know what this is. I've never done this. Like, I don't like, why am I here?
Right.
And so it's like,
You can
and
hear
so
the panic.
yeah, it's like, what is this stuff? I don't know crochet something, like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
So first, we got to get them past like jumping off the ledge. And then once they
Right.
are past that, then we talk about, okay, well, how can we get through this? How can we get through
Right.
this together?
Right.
So I've learned different types of techniques with students. And I've learned that sometimes it has to change every semester because you get a
Hmm.
different group in every semester.
I believe it.
And, so some pillars that I stand on is having a safe space, having a space for culture and diversity brought
Hmm.
in, and having a space for different learning styles, right? So
Yeah.
I make sure that regardless of the students in the class, those things have to be present. So I
Hmm.
think that helps with each semester kind of shifting the style.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I love that because I think that's such a refreshing take because there are some people who get so stuck in a way that worked for them, especially in
Yeah.
teaching at the beginning of their career, and they don't change with the times. Like
Yeah.
I think about when I was in the classroom for about 11 years, I started out, I'm a millennial, I was teaching other millennials. And
Yeah.
by the end of it, I was teaching Gen Zers who
Yeah.
the same jokes I had in 2010 didn't hit the same. Like,
No,
so
it's,
you mentioned the music or rap, and they're like, oh, that's old school, Mr. Burton. I
yeah.
was like, old school? Like, that came out the other day. So you have to adjust. You have to
Right.
adapt with
And
the
you're like,
time.
well, how old am I? I thought I was good,
Right? I thought I was one of y'all, but no, no. distance now, right?
Yeah, there's distance, yeah.
Yeah.
But you're right, it's the adjusting. It's like,
Mhm.
knowing your population, um, knowing who they are. One of the things I love to do in my class is check-in. I do check-in the first thing with every class,
Mhm.
and I learned that in my graduate program from my
Yeah.
professors.
Right, right.
And I literally give them, let's 1 to 5, let's check in, and
Yeah.
how's everyone doing on a scale 1 to 5? But then I've switched it up over the years, and I'll change it by module. So when I
Mhm.
change the module, I change the check-in. So then it might be, okay, today's check-in is, what food do you really wish you could be eating right now?
Come
Right. So
on.
what, and then it's like, what is the favorite song that you want to hear right now? And
Yeah.
then it helps me get to know them. I know what
Oh,
kind of food
yeah.
they like, what kind of
Right.
music they like, what they're feeling on a scale from 1 to 5.
Mhm.
So that helps me like get to know the students, and then I tell them mine. So then they're
Yeah.
getting to know me. Oh, she likes
Exactly.
to eat sweet potato pie and she wants to hear, LL Cool J
Yes.
so they'll get to know me as well. So that
Right.
check-in like really helps break the ice.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, because
Mm,
it reminds everyone, even though we should know this, it reminds everyone that there are nothing but humans in that room, right? Like,
right.
like these are humans learning from another human, and that's what it really is at its core, you
That's right. That's right. That's what it really is.
know.
That's what it really is. And even, if I say my music, they're like, oh, she's ancient. She's talking about some dude that's 50 something.
Right? She's like, from the days the dinosaurs roamed the earth,
Yeah.
hello, Cool J. That's what it feels like.
We're like, oh, hello,
Who?
who?
The guy from CBS?
Right.
It's like, no, one of the greatest rappers ever. That's what I'm telling you
Yes, yes.
about.
Bells, rock the
Rock the
bells.
bells. Like, come on, what are you talking about? Flying
Like,
over their head right now.
yeah,
Well, I really appreciate that as you talk about being a scholar, you also hold that right next to being an artist.
yeah.
And what is it about being an artist? Because I'll tell you that I made the declaration going into 2023 that I was going to move and operate and understand my vocation primarily as an artist. That even whether
Mhm.
I was in the classroom or doing ministry or podcasting, writing, whatever it is, that I'm gonna have that lens as an artist and allow myself to create through that. So, what is it about being an artist for you that is so core to your identity and your vocation?
Yeah, I love your ideal saying you're going to move and operate as an artist because it's two things. One is I think that people were so fixated that art is one thing,
Yeah,
that art is like you have to paint or you have
right.
to art is this one thing. And if you have any other type of skill set or creativity in any other area, that it's not considered art.
Hmm.
So the fact that you're looking at your vocation as art and you're moving in that way, I like that because I think that is also what I think about myself.
Yeah,
um, because oftentimes it wasn't until recently where I felt like people almost accepted and embraced fiber art, what people call fiber
sure.
art,
Yeah,
because years ago it was like folk art. That's just folk art. That's not really like fine art, and that's
wow.
not visual art and
Right.
folk art. So you're like put over here in this category
Yeah.
that,
With everything else.
yeah, that into the fine art world, it doesn't mean anything. It's
Right.
like, you know, and so I had to like really process like how I'm going to identify myself with my art. And
Mm,
so I continued to crochet, but I started like shifting it to create art that can be hung on walls
mm,
or, with crochet.
yeah.
And so I was kind of shifting my focus on things and more instead of saying, I'm going to make a bunch of crafts, I'm going to make a bunch of like cup cozies. I was shifting it to, I'm going to make art that's hung on walls.
Yeah, yeah, I get you.
And so, I think I'm operating in not only my art world, but in my academic world
Hmm.
as an artist, um, so to speak. So even if I teach education classes
Yeah.
that are not art classes, I think I still operate in a mindset of art.
Hmm.
So I could be teaching classes around curriculum, and
Right.
curriculum instruction or around urban education
Hmm.
or something like that. But some of my content, some of my pedagogy, some of my, syllabus might pertain to what kinds of actions students might participate in
Yeah.
because I'm thinking of it from an art realm.
Yeah.
So I think I operate in that space, even though I know that the world looks at them as two separate things.
Sure. Sure.
You know, the world looks at it as this is education, this
Right.
is art, unless you're teaching art. This
Right.
is they're two separate worlds. But I am really focused diligently on
Hmm.
aligning these worlds.
Yeah.
Like that has been my daily mission for
Sure.
3 years
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
since I got into academia. That is
Cool.
my daily mission for 3 years. And sometimes it's not successful, but
Hmm.
I have not given up
Yeah.
hope.
You're determined.
Yeah.
Yeah, I respect it. I respect it because even as you were saying it, the whole notion of like folk art and saying it like dismissively, and like I love music, and when people talk like folk music, it's just like kind of like the same sort of like
You're right.
island of misfit toys, like over there with their banjo or ukulele or whatever.
Right.
And to me, it's just so absurdly elitist in the sense that
Mm,
these are things that have formed people's identities. I was just
yeah.
reading this morning about this leader in Korean business who talked about shortly after the Korean War, he was saying that he had such a huge emphasis on cultures because he said no culture, no country. So think about all these different cultures that we have around the world and all these different nation states that we have that wouldn't be held together without those folk traditions like
It's true.
the art like crocheting and things of that
It's
nature. We
true.
just wouldn't be held together in the most literal
Right.
sense of it. Yeah.
I agree with that because if you think of it, culture makes communities who they are, right?
Oh, without a
And
doubt.
then communities could be very small. It could be right here where I live in
Right.
Charlotte, or my community could also be the state of North Carolina. My
Yeah.
community could be the United States.
Uh-huh.
It shapes communities. And so those traditions and those cultures and those um, finer things, like the more intricate things that we do in our lives, they
Yeah.
shape our communities.
Undoubtedly. Undoubtedly.
Yeah.
You've had the opportunity to take this mission worldwide, right? Like you've led crocheting sessions in several countries. So what has been a
Yeah.
commonality that you've seen, and what's the sort of like the distinctions that you've seen that have left an impression on you while you've been leading these sessions around the
Yeah.
world?
Yeah. I've been doing different sessions, and it's interesting because some of the sessions are not formal; they're very informal, and
Yeah.
some are formal. And so sometimes when I would travel for a vacation slash mission trip, I would carry yarn with me where I went. I would carry
Yeah.
yarn and crochet hooks, and then wherever I'd go, I would gather to see, is there anybody who wants to crochet? Is there
Yeah.
anybody out here who wants to crochet? So, and I always got takers. I always
Yeah.
got.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I found that the commonalities is that there's always people who find it interesting. They gravitate to it. I want to try that. I want to see that.
Mm,
Oh, I remember my grandmother doing that. Oh, I remember my great
right.
grandmother doing that. Oh, that's been in our family, but I never learned how to do it. I have this
Mm-hmm.
blanket. I want to show you this blanket. Like those are the commonalities, regardless of if I'm in the US, if I'm in another country.
Right.
People have found that they gravitate toward it because usually someone, if they remembered in their legacy, had done it before, or they have
Hmm.
something in their household that had been created by someone in their history, in their legacy, that did that craft.
Right.
Or if they've never seen it before, it just looks interesting. Like, oh, I'll try that. Now that doesn't mean not all of them stick with it.
Sure.
Sometimes they give it 5 minutes. Okay, had enough. I'm done with this. Like I
Hmm.
am not going to sit here and waste my time doing that for an hour. But then there's other
Like I'm good.
people that they're done.
Right.
But other people who are like, oh, I don't want to give up. I'm so close. They just want to keep trying, keep trying. So I think the commonalities are those things of familiarity that they've seen in their families,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that part. And I think the difference is, I don't know if I've seen a lot of differences because a lot of times, like I said, wherever I am, that's kind of like the mindset, even when there's a language barrier. So I've been to some countries like in Guatemala where I was volunteering at a school with fourth and fifth graders. And there was a language barrier. So
Uh
I
huh.
knew a little Spanish, they knew a
Right.
little English. you
Right.
know, but we were able to like demonstrate through hand motions
Hmm.
that showed them how to do it. So we didn't even have to speak English for me
Right.
to demonstrate or me to speak full Spanish for me to demonstrate how to do this thing. And they still gravitated toward it.
Come
And so I
on.
feel like, yeah, they still gravitate and I went there several days. So they kept coming back
Right.
and like wanted to do more, wanted to do more. So I'm like, that to me was like powerful because it didn't matter that we didn't speak the same language. It just mattered that we were all interested in the same thing.
Sure, sure. You
You
still
know,
had
and
something
these,
that held you together
yes. And
with that.
these were young kids. These, like I said, were fourth and fifth graders.
Oh,
So
yeah, yeah.
that was like, really impactful to me.
I love that. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So much of what you're saying reminds me of documentaries I've seen where people are playing basketball with like folks of different cultures, and
Yeah.
they're playing a
They don't
pickup
speak the
game.
language.
No one's speaking the only language they speak is basketball.
Is
That's the
best.
shared language, and just
Right.
thinking about how activities like this, and that's why I call crocheting sacred, is because it
Mm,
brings folks together who otherwise may literally have nothing to say to each other because they don't share common language otherwise. But
true.
think about what is being like held together in that
Yeah.
space of you're showing them a technique, and maybe they're showing you something that you hadn't seen before either, and there's this beautiful exchange that happens.
Yeah, absolutely. There was definitely a beautiful exchange taking place because they only met me that week. They didn't know me. It's not like they had
Right.
known me previously. They
Right.
met me while I was in their community,
Hmm.
while I was volunteering. So it wasn't like they knew me well, but they, I think, felt comfortable with me
Yeah.
after, a day and a half or so because of this commonality, this thing that we were doing together,
No doubt.
because they would be tapping me to say, look at this,
Yeah. Yeah.
because and so they were so excited. So they're like tapping me to look, to look, to look,
That's awesome.
and I knew, I'm like, okay, they're really enjoying that.
Yeah, they locked in.
Enjoying doing that thing. So I think that was one of probably the most memorable experiences I've had with
Mm,
commonalities. And probably I felt like very impactful at the time.
get you. Get you. So outside of crocheting, how do you like to spend your time? Like, what's something that gets your attention?
That is hilarious because that's hilarious because prior to me becoming a professor and starting a business
Yeah.
around this work, I worked a 9 to 5 at a
Uh huh.
school. And so my spare time was like, after work, I'm gonna crochet.
Yeah.
And like I would either read,
Right.
my things were read, crochet, or run because I used to be a runner.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, it's I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go for a run and then I'll crochet and I'll just read a book and I'll crochet. Like that was my stuff I did in my spare time.
Uh huh.
Now that I am doing this work like 24/7, like I'm trying to find the balance of what's spare time. Like I'm like, okay, do I keep crocheting even though I'm just
Yeah.
crocheting for 2 hours, or do I keep like
Right.
reading this crochet even though it's like,
Right.
I'm trying to find like where do I say don't crochet today?
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
I feel like it's a part of who I am.
Of
So
course.
yeah, it's an interesting like twist now, like
Isn't
where's the
it?
balance of like spare time? Because
Right.
I still will crochet. I don't run anymore because I can't. I have an injury, but
Got you.
I still crochet a lot more
Mm,
than I used to because
yeah.
now I do it all day, and I still read a lot, but now I'm reading more about research-based benefits around crochet,
Yeah.
the well-being around crocheting.
Mm,
So it's interesting. So what I do when I do try to like say I'm just stopping, I'll spend time with family, like go to movies.
mm,
I have children, like I have
right.
two bonus sons and my child Jordan. So I'll try to spend time with them, like get them to come to town, have dinner. My mom and dad is still alive, so I try to
Hmm.
spend time with them.
Right. Right.
Friends. So I'll do things like that, do some church activities,
Uh
like
huh.
I'll volunteer with my church or do activities with my church. But that's probably my things I do outside of
Got you.
researching and crocheting.
Got you. Got
So,
you. It's just it really is funny because you think about that those flashback to those times where you're doing your 9 to 5, like, man, I wish I could just crochet all the time, and now you're crocheting all the time. Like, how
Yeah.
do I balance this out? Like
Right.
I'm doing.
It is weird though. It is a weird thing. And now people are
Yeah.
like, "Oh, you have time, just can I get a blanket?" I'm like, "Excuse me, what do you mean I have
They're putting
time?"
their orders right.
But I'm really focusing now
Yeah.
because I can crochet more readily is focusing on where I want my next body of work to go with crochet.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
really want it to be meaningful to me, and
Let's go.
so I've been kind of in some meditative space, digging deeper around that.
With that.
Because when I do a large project of crochet, I want it to be like meaningful.
Yeah.
And, crochet is not something that you can do in a weekend. Like it takes time. When you're
Of
doing big
course.
projects, it takes months. It
Right, right,
takes
right.
months. So I need to have a vision when I do this. Like I got a vision. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of
I,
in that space.
I'm laughing at people thinking you can just like whip something up on the spot. Like, give me
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
couple hours, maybe a blanket. Like, no, that's
Yeah.
not how it goes, right?
It doesn't work like that.
No,
It
no, no,
doesn't
no,
work
no.
like that. Yeah.
For sure, for sure.
So
What has been a moment in this season of your life that has made you feel a deep sense of gratitude or awe?
mm, that's a good question. The reason why I'm saying it's a good question is
Hmm.
because in this new season I'm in, which is a transition from my 9 to 5 in K through 12 education into academia
Yeah.
and starting a business, it is very different. And so there's times when I feel like I'm not seeing progress, so to speak,
Sure.
like I'm not
Yeah.
seeing, um, like successes,
Get you.
things
Get
that,
you.
I had to literally type out in a year's time, and it really is 2 years now, the successes, the wins that I've had in my life
Come
in that
on.
time,
Yeah.
because I visually need to see it, because I know for a fact that I am working hard and I know that, God is like continue to push me and
Right.
bless me in certain ways. But sometimes when you're in the day to day,
Don't feel like
you're
it.
it's just like, what? There's nothing. But when I really thought about things that like I felt in the past year or two that has given me a good warm feeling of I'm making progress
Yeah.
was two things. One is an art. One was when the Gaston County Museum asked me to be their featured artist for
Let's go.
their niche knits exhibit, and
Yeah.
it's a history of hosiery from that town that had mills that are now shut down
Come
that
on.
were producing hosiery.
Right, right.
And so they literally laid out the history of that and asked me to be the featured fiber artist. And I thought, that is amazing. Like
Mm-hmm.
they reached out to me and asked me to do that. And so that gave me a feeling of in awe in terms of like
Yeah.
just the progress I've made and the blessings to be able to like here's some skill level that I put into this work that is now, included in this museum for a 16-month exhibit.
Come on.
So yeah, that was like, oh, Portia, yes,
You're doing
yes.
it. Right. It's happening.
On the down days, I'm like, Gaston County, all right,
Pull up that
all
program.
right.
Like, yeah, I did that.
But and then from the academic realm,
Yeah.
it was getting my book published.
Let's
Like
go.
it was grueling. I think you've also published a book, didn't you?
So I'm on the
It's
way to do it.
on
I've
the
been
way.
doing a lot of
Okay.
self-publishing things, a lot of
Okay.
ebooks.
Gotcha.
Shout out to if you want to buy a copy, go on BaddestChaplain.substack.com. We're gonna do a live
Okay.
reading real quick. Go ahead,
Okay.
continue.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it was such a grueling process for me that took me a year to really like get it published. It's through Roman and Littlefield, so it's
Yeah.
like through a publishing company,
Right.
which they have lots of peer reviewers, which
Of
just
course.
send back stuff to you where you're
Of
like
course.
redoing.
Mm-hmm.
And I never thought I'd get to the end of that, and I did, and I
Yeah.
got it published, and it is around the literacies of Black girls using drama to explore foundational literacy, Black girls literacy. So it's around using an art form, which is
Mm-hmm.
drama, to explore those literacies. Once I actually got the book sent to me, and I opened the door and I opened the box and I pulled that out, the feeling that I had, I think I started having little tears dribble down my
Come
face.
on. Come on.
I think I had a little tears dribbling down. I had to,
Yeah.
because it was just an amazing feeling to
Let's
say,
go.
thank you, God, because the work was hard.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Yes. So I think those two feelings of like success for myself
Right.
were in this season, but then there were things that I felt really good about when I'm supporting like others. One of the
Hmm.
things I did for my church for the past year and a half was the voiceover production. And I felt really good about that
Let's
because
go.
when we would go to church on Sunday and they would put the production on, it would be my voice
That's really awesome. That's really awesome.
announcing to the crowd
Right.
what we do to support our community.
Uh-huh.
So that was a good feeling too.
Of course. Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's amazing because they all kind of, I think there's a little bit of like whether it's like a full blown imposter syndrome or just like some voice in your head, usually, unfortunately, like an amalgamation of all the like doubters that you've accumulated in your life that like lives in your head rent free and just tries to persuade you that you can't do things. And at times when you're able to say like, no, but like, look, I did those voiceovers and I did that exhibit for Gaston
Yeah.
County and then the book came
Yeah.
out and
Yeah.
I'm a professor right now. Like all these things working together to just continue, just like tell that voice, you're wrong, go somewhere, be quiet. You know what I mean?
That's right.
It's a
Yeah,
it's a beautiful
that's
thing.
right. That is very true. It is a beautiful thing. I usually go plan December for the new year.
Yeah, yeah.
And one of the things I wrote down was like, I'm not letting any voices in my head because 2024 is going to be bold for me.
That's
So I'm
it.
like, there ain't no voices coming in my head.
Nah, nah, nah. That's
So
it. You gonna make it happen. You know what I mean?
that's right.
Gonna
That's
make it
right.
happen. So
That's right.
what would you say is your hope for the world in this particular moment?
Yeah, that's good. I think my hope, there's so many hopes because I'm a person who's like a feeling person,
Sure.
like an empath. So when I like
Yeah, yeah.
hear the news, I'm like, oh, my heart is breaking
No doubt
inside.
about it. No doubt.
Great, because I know like I can't just step out my house and go help like 1 million people,
Right.
like I can't just step out and be like, oh, I'm gonna save all of these people in the world. And so I always have to think about what's my contribution? How can I do? What can I do? How can I do? And so when I think about areas that I have hope for, I think I wish that there could be lots of change in like equity and justice,
Mm-hmm.
particularly around education, because I feel like education can help people go a long way.
Of
Like,
course.
I know there's a lot of downers in public education. Like, there's
Sure.
a lot of people who don't believe in it
Right.
anymore. And rightfully so, with some of the policies that are out there and some
Mm-hmm.
of the actions that have taken place. I understand that. But I feel like I never give up hope in education because once you get it, it's with you.
Of
It's with you.
course.
And it's not something that anybody of a higher power could say, I'm taking that education from you. They
Right.
can't take it from you because it's yours.
Exactly.
And that is what helped me out of the city of Boston into having 3 degrees and
Come
having
on.
and having art and having just being able to support people who don't have what I have. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's education that I think my hope is for in the world.
With that.
That's probably where I'd have to go with that. And my little spin on that is like sprinkling in that art with it.
Yeah, of course. So
Sprinkling in that art with the education because that can help so many people in so many ways. You know?
undoubtedly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm here for it. I'm here for it. So I'm gonna ask you this question. This is a question we ask every guest
Okay.
who comes on this podcast.
Okay.
I just love to hear the variety and the like rich milieu of answers that we get. I
Okay.
want you to imagine that you're hosting a dinner. You can invite 4 guests. They can be dead or living, fictional or real people. Who are you bringing to dinner?
Depends on what we're eating. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Who are the missing eaters? Let's put them to this side. You
Right.
know?
No, no, no. I thought about that. I My first person that comes to mind is an artist, and she's a fiber artist. I absolutely love her work. I've been loving it for several years. And I keep saying, oh, I tell my students, oh, she's my favorite artist at this time. And I keep thinking like another person's going to pop up as my favorite artist,
Right.
but she keeps popping up as my
She's
favorite artist.
holding it down.
She's holding it down. And that's Bisa Butler. I
Okay.
don't know if you've seen her work,
Mm.
but she does these amazingly colorful, beautiful, large quilts of the celebration of and narratives of Black life, like of
Yeah.
African American life. And they are amazingly beautiful. And I stalk her, I follow her, I show my students her work. I would absolutely invite her to dinner. Hopefully she'll be like, yes, I'll be there, girl. And we can like sit down and talk and everything about her
Yeah,
work
yeah.
and her vision. And, I would love to have her. Um, I think another person that I often think about is Mary McLeod Bethune, only
Ooh,
because she was
genius.
just this female educator, social justice advocate, womanist, started a
Hmm.
school for girls.
Right.
She just has that whole education component from a Black female
No
perspective.
doubt.
And I would love to just be able to pick her brain and
Hmm.
like, where should I go next? What should I do with these students?
Right.
Tell me like what your vision would be.
Yeah.
I would love to have her. I think that she and Bisa Butler and we could probably really get into some really good, nitty gritty talking about art and education and exploring that world with
Mhm.
students today. So she would definitely be a second person that I invite. Um, a person that I've always like been so fascinated by is Malcolm X.
Oh,
I'm
yeah, yeah.
so fascinated by his boldness, his
Mhm.
intelligence, his advocacy,
Mhm.
like just watching, reading about his transition in life
Yeah.
from where he went. And, I'm from Boston,
I
so
was
he
a
spent
fellow Bostonian. I peeped it.
there,
So sweet.
and then just how he transformed his view
Mhm.
and how he and Martin Luther King were able to like see some alignment
No doubt
and
about it.
how they want to like move people forward.
Right.
I think he would be like a twist to the conversation with the ladies
Yes.
and, kind of add a whole new perspective that maybe we're so wrapped up into like education or art that he'll throw in something and say, you didn't think about this.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
are people forward with this? He would definitely be the disruptor
No doubt.
and make us think, hard about stuff. So
Sincerely.
he was invited for sure. And then I think I was torn on a fourth person, but I think I'm going with Kevin Hart. And
Okay.
here's the why.
Let's go. Let's hear this.
I know you weren't expecting that.
Now you caught me off guard, Dr. York. I ain't gonna lie to you.
The reason I'm going with him, he tickles me, first of all. I watch
Yes.
his movies and he tickles me.
So
I do
funny.
find him funny.
Right.
Two is lately I've been listening to his podcast.
That's for real.
And I have been fascinated with the people that he brings on his
Yeah.
show.
Yeah.
So he's had Malcolm Gladwell.
Mm-hmm.
He's had Punky Johnson. He's had June Jordan. I mean, just people that I'm like, oh my goodness. And I'm fascinated to hear their stories.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, Kevin Hart is like getting me hooked in these
Right,
podcasts.
right.
So in addition to that, I never knew that he had like this serious side
Yeah,
that
yeah.
really have like a deeper level conversation. I never knew that about
Mm-hmm.
him until I started listening to the podcast.
Yeah.
And then I like, okay, I have a different level of respect for this man now
No doubt.
because he's opening my brain. The people that he brings on the show are not only comedians, but they're people who are in business.
Yes.
And it's opening my brain to like other areas of the way to think about business,
Mm-hmm.
right? That incorporate people around you.
Yeah.
And I'm like kind of hooked on that right now. So he would be the fourth person that like comes to dinner and he probably would keep us laughing, but also
Yeah.
now that I know that he has a serious side, we could also engage in the conversations with us about, where to go with business and how we can help, people pursue business beyond academia.
Right.
Yeah. So those would be my four people.
That's a strong group and a balanced group. I really like.
Even Kevin Hart? You think even Kevin
You
Hart?
know, at first I was like, okay, you wanted like a little levity to the group, right? Because you had like the serious artist, serious educator, serious activist, and Kevin could kind of like MC and keep the room spinning.
Yeah.
But then Kevin's bringing some depth to the space too,
He's bringing
right?
depth.
He's bringing some depth because I do really appreciate a number of his comedy. He has almost made me choke to death on the cheese doodle. Like when he told his joke about him and this is a long time ago. Him and the teacher that didn't get along with it, like Kevin, Miss Graham, like that teacher interaction.
Yeah.
I almost didn't make it.
Yeah.
And then, but I've been watching a lot of his what's it called, like the it's like with Old Spice, like the ice cold baths
Yeah.
that he does. I watch those. I watch his interview series on Peacock. He
Yeah.
has some very insightful moments intertwined with the jokes. So
He does,
I'm
which
here
I
for it.
never knew that about him. I
Yeah,
was like, really? Kevin Hart? Really?
yeah,
Until I started listening to the podcast. Something that he says on the show frequently, which I'm like, oh, that's me. He calls a lot of people on his show multi-hyphenates.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I'm like, I like that because I hadn't heard that term before. I read this book years ago called The Slash Person,
yeah, yeah,
which I
yeah,
think is similar to what he's
for sure.
calling a multi-hyphenate. And I thought, yeah, this is the space I'm in right now. I'm a
Mhm.
multi-hyphenate. And so when he's talking to his guests about being a multi-hyphenate and how they
Right.
became successful, I'm like, oh, I fit in that space.
Hmm.
Like I see myself there.
No
So
doubt.
yeah, he would be my fourth person.
The comedians have a lot of depth.
They do.
I have this image in my brain. I need to write it at some point, but I think that like teachers, preachers, rappers, and comedians all live on the same block, and we're just kind of like in Harlem when they used to have the people just like talk, like Marcus Garvey would be speaking at one corner or something like that. I think that's how our like use of language is in that
Yeah.
same arena. Like we just all
Yeah.
kind of speak into that intersection, but we're just always working the same corner.
I like that. I
Yeah,
do like that. I could visualize that.
yeah,
There's
yeah.
the artist brain again. I could visualize that, like a Brooklyn block, something, with
Hmm.
brownstones and everybody's kind of living on the block. And
Exactly.
I can see it. I can see it clear.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
no doubt
That's
about it. No
good.
doubt
That's
about it.
good.
So where can we who are listening to this or watching this keep up with your work? Like where should we go? Like tell us a bit about the book. Where can we like buy it? All that good stuff.
Yeah, okay. The book can be purchased either at Roman Littlefield's website or Lexington Books website or Amazon. Can get it there too. Or you can email me because I can always send you into my email is Dr. York at yorkcreativeeducation.com.
Sweet, sweet.
So that can be purchased there just for social media everywhere.
Mm.
So with IG, it's at York Creative Ed. With Facebook, it's York Creative Ed. LinkedIn is my name, Portia Marie York.
Uh-huh.
So LinkedIn's my name. And then you can also go to my website, which is yorkcreativeeducation.com.
That's it. That's it. With
Yeah.
you doing crochet, we gotta get you on Threads. All of us who are exiled from Twitter, now X, we're on Threads. You do the crochet, you gotta be on Threads.
You know what? I started to sign up for that, and so do you no longer do X? Do you no longer do X?
I still
Are you
have a
being
page.
boycotting?
It's not even boycotted because like it don't mean nothing to him. Like I mean, what am I?
We don't care about Chris. We got a million other people.
My name is not ringing bells like that. You know what I'm saying?
No,
So this is like a drop in the ocean. But
right?
but yeah, I just I've moved over to at first when I saw that he bought Twitter, I was rocking with it for as long as I could. Then like it started to function poorly, and I was
Yeah.
like, I need to go somewhere. So I jumped on like 5 different. I think I did like Blue Sky, Spill,
Okay.
and then I saw when I guess Meta just like said, "Oh, we're doing Threads," which is just like copy paste of what Twitter used to be. I said, "This is what I'm looking for. All those other things is what I'm trying to do,"
Mm,
and so that's why I jumped over
okay.
there. And it's not quite there, like
Okay.
that golden era of Twitter in like 2009, 2010, where Twitter was the Wild West, but it was still like a
Yeah.
very fun place. It's
Okay.
not quite there, but at least it has more structure than just the chaos of X. X just feels like a
It's so
downtown.
limiting.
It's limiting, but it just reminds me of like a downtown that used to have a lot of hope and promise, and now it's just like all the buildings are abandoned. Ain't no
I
stores
hadn't
that
thought about it that
you
way.
can't get nothing to eat. You just better
I hadn't thought about it that
get
way.
floored out of town, man. Get out of there,
I don't see someone asked me a while ago when I was like trying to figure out what platforms I want to be on for social media for my business, and
Yeah,
Twitter was my least favorite.
yeah.
And they're like, "Why?" And I'm like, I just don't. I'm not feeling it. I don't know what it is. Like, you got
Nah,
limited characters. I'm not really engaging with people. I mean,
yeah.
And I still feel the same way. The only reason I keep it is because I can upload lots of things to Hootsuite. So
Right,
I
right,
just,
right.
but
Yeah.
not because I love Twitter.
Exactly. It used to be really special. It's like
Yeah.
it used to
Yeah, I
be
don't know.
really special. Now
Yeah.
it's kind of
I'll
like
check
when
out
people
Threads.
talk about like an old club that used to be like an amazing spot and that don't exist no more. That's what I feel like with
Yeah.
Twitter. It's like, oh, you had to be there.
You had to be there. You had to be there. Yeah. All right. Well, I will definitely check out Threads. I have already how you start like an account for it, but I never
Yeah,
really like follow through with it
got you.
because it was kind of unfamiliar. Like, well, what is this Threads
Right,
thing? And is this going to be more work for me? I might have to add another account. I'm like
right.
kind of in that
I'm
phase.
with
So,
you. Understand?
but but yeah, I'll go back and check it back out. Do you think it's successful? You think it's more
I think it's going to be something special
okay?
when the smoke finally clears of everything else. But it's not there yet. So
Okay.
it's kind of like getting it on the ground floor.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sounds cool.
yeah,
Check it out. Thanks for the
indeed.
referral.
It's what we do here. It's what we do here. You know.
This
But
is good.
this is great. Thank you so much for being here. For those of you who are watching, listening, once again, thank you so much for being here. Make sure you subscribe. We're on YouTube. We're on Substack, BaddestChaplain.substack.com, Spotify, Apple, any and everywhere you're getting podcasts. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, that like button, leave us a comment. It's just a joy to be able to bring this content to you. So until next time, be well, be wonderful, be your best self, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.